Hello and welcome to another weekly update. UK video viewers will probably recognise the distinctive purple hue of the Premier Inn hotel group. I am in Leeds today, certainly for this morning, and that's because last night I was at the Northern UC user group, which was really good actually, really good, really well attended. Really good fun, really good vibe. It's led by Ian Smith, who's fellow MVP, also works at Modality, and it was a really good evening. So Will Rowe from MS Employ spoke about the IT industry and about careers, and spoke a little bit about his new book, Evolve or Die, but some really good advice for what you should do in your career and what companies can do generally as well. So that was brilliant, and he bought me a beer, so that's all good. And also Ben Lee spoke as well about Microsoft Teams, and showed some cool stuff, talked generally about Teams and why it might be a good fit, and things to be aware of, things to consider. And I spoke as well about kind of bots and dev and that sort of space. I did a new talk actually, which I've been meaning to do for a little while, and it's really aimed at sort of non-developers. It's aimed at IT pro people who think that maybe all this new bot and AI stuff is just for developers, and that's not the case. It's not just for developers. It's super accessible. You don't have to be really good at development to kind of get into this stuff and to make use of it. If you can do PowerShell, if you can call an API, then you can use Microsoft Cognitive Services. You can put in groundbreaking artificial intelligence into your applications. So that's a little bit about what my talk was about, and did a demo as well using Q&A Maker and the new Azure bot service. So that was all good, that's the reason that I am here in Leeds. Apologies for the shadow as well. These hotel rooms are not set up for weekly update videos, it turns out. So anyway, lots and lots happening this week. It's been a super busy one, certainly for me. I've been out and about as well, so plenty of travelling, but also in this space. So every month the Microsoft Graph community have a community call, which they are good enough to video and put straight to YouTube, which is excellent because I never have time to go and sit on the call live, but it's very good to review afterwards the things they talk about, because it's a great way of catching up with what's happening in the Microsoft Graph space. And their last community call was on the 6th of Feb, and it's posted to YouTube. And they go through the stuff that's new. There's a new Intune API, so if you're accessing Intune information, you can now do that with an API. They talk a bit about storage and some orchestration workflows, some stuff using Power Apps, some other things. And it's good because they bring in some really good people as well. They bring in people from the product team to talk, people who are specialists in these really specific areas, to talk about just those areas. So that's definitely worth a watch, and it's a really good way of just catching up and making sure you don't miss anything in that sort of space. Two blog posts I want to call out this week around PowerShell and accessing Teams in PowerShell. So first of all, Starley Hansen, fellow MVP, has done a good blog post, actually off the back of a session he did at NIC Conf, around accessing Teams data and doing Teams workloads in PowerShell. And he's posted in as well the PowerShell he uses, and exactly that flow that he goes through, because it's a couple of different steps, and it involves doing some Office 365 group stuff as well. So if that's of interest, if you think being able to create teams sort of programmatically using PowerShell, and right now actually that's a good way of doing it. then take a look at that, because it's all there in his blog post as well, which is brilliant. And it's also worth mentioning, he's kind of a throwaway mention at the end, but it's definitely worth going to check out, that he is co-authoring a book with Tony Redmond, who again an MVP. I think everyone knows who Tony Redmond is. And that book's called Office 365 for IT Pros, and you should definitely go and check that out, because there will be a wealth of knowledge in there. On a similar theme, Matt Landis, again another MVP in this space, has noted down in a blog post some interesting sort of session information and throttling information that, if you are going down that route of working with teams in PowerShell, you should probably be aware of, because if you're not aware of it, it may come and kind of catch you out one day. And there's some things in there around the maximum number of PowerShell sessions you can have, how many sessions per person, how many sessions per domain, and how long those sessions last, and what happens when they finish or when they time out. So all that sort of stuff is worth knowing if you're going to be programmatically working with teams in PowerShell, because otherwise you're going to end up with scripts that kind of randomly time out or just sometimes don't work, and you're not going to know why. So it's all this kind of defensive coding stuff is definitely worth doing, especially if you're doing it at scale or in something that's automated. And so knowing the boundaries in which you're allowed to operate and how to spot when you are exceeding those boundaries is very useful. And finally, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that Microsoft have just announced the dates for the Build conference. So traditionally, Build is Microsoft's developers conference, and it happens every year. The last year or two, at least 1 year, has been in Seattle, and that seems to have gone down very well. And I think probably proximity to Microsoft's campus has been a good thing, because it means that kind of Build ends up being stuffed full of product and engineering team people. So there's a wealth of information, and the right people are all there, which is excellent. Again, it's in Seattle this year. It is May the 7th to May the 9th, which actually overlaps with Google's I/O conference, which is Google's Build conference, developer conference. But I think that was a little bit unavoidable. It should be. These events are always interesting, because Microsoft like to align large announcements to key events like this. So there's two things to watch out for, I think, for me at these events. The first is large announcements that happen in the keynotes. So keynotes are good places for Microsoft to announce the things that they want you to pay attention to. So they're always worth watching. But then also it is worth digging up the session information for the things that you're interested in, whether that's developing around Skype for Business, around Teams, whether it's the IT Pro space, whether it's SharePoint or OneDrive. Go and search the session catalog, find out the sessions and when they're happening, and fingers crossed, but many of these sessions in the previous conferences have gone to YouTube or gone to Channel 9 on video relatively quickly. So the thing to do is to look for the session that you're interested in, and then wait for it to come on video, and then watch it, and you'll be surprised. Stuff will get announced in there as well. Maybe it's not big enough to make the keynote, but if it's interesting in your world, then those sessions are worth watching to see kind of what happened, what the product team, the things they want to tell you, that this is their opportunity really to stand up in public and bring the world up to date with the things that they're interested in, they've been working on, and what the future holds for them. So as much as anything else, it's an opportunity for them to present to you about the things that they care about. So make the most of that. That's happening in a couple of months' time. So that'll be good to watch out for. And so I think that's everything I wanted to talk about this week. The only other thing to mention is Pat announced it, so I guess I can talk about it now. So Pat runs a podcast called UC Inside Track, and he has been interviewing, I suppose, for want of a better word. Sitting down and talking is probably a better way, with a number of different people. Most recently, I think it was Josh, and then after that, I can't remember. It was Jamie, I think. But anyway, you're going to have to go and look it up now because I can't quite remember. Yes, I'm pretty sure it was Jamie Stark. But the thing I wanted to say is that next month it will be me. So look out for that. That should be a lot of fun. Pat's a great guy, and so really knows his stuff, and he knows a lot of the development stuff as well. He's a PowerShell guru, so it should be interesting to chat with him about some of this stuff. Brilliant. All right, have a lovely weekend and a great week next week, and I will speak to you soon.